Okay, welcome to this brief little video to talk about the final exam for the abnormal psychology class, summer 2011. First thing first, when and where? Well, it'll be available on Blackboard, kind of like your other quizzes in the Assessments tab. It'll be available, it'll be posted ready so that you can begin starting Thursday night, this Thursday, at 10 p.m. You don't have to start Thursday, but you can. But you must start sometime before Friday night at 11:59 p.m. After that, it'll be closed, and you won't be able to take it, and you would get a 0 on the final, which wouldn't be good. So start anytime between Thursday 10 p.m. and Friday 11:59 p.m. So 14-hour window there, where hopefully you can find time to take it. Once you begin, you'll have 3 hours to complete it. And you can use your books and your notes if you like, but no other resources, right? No friends, no internet, no DVDs about abnormal psychology. Maybe you've been saving up. So just your textbook and any notes you've taken over the course of the semester. Welcome to use those if you think they'll be helpful to you. But the test isn't designed in such a way such that you would have to have those. Okay, so the format be a combination of multiple choice and essay, 39 multiple choice questions, which will be worth 75% of the exam grade, and big asterisks here, something different from the way your quizzes have gone to date. Usually when you go take your quizzes on Blackboard, you see all the questions at once, right? And you answer all the questions. You can save them one at a time, or you can save them all at once and then submit it. For the final, you'll only see one question at a time for the multiple choice questions. And you have to save it before you move on, and you can't go back. So whether you answer or not, so if you see a question, I don't know, I'm going to come back to it, you can't do that. You have to answer it now, right? Because this is the final exam stuff you should, you know, or you don't know. And this also limits, keeps people from looking up every single question in their book, because I don't want you to know that you can read a book. I want to know that you know this information. This is one way to kind of put some pressure on you to help reveal differences between people who know the material and those who can just look it up. So see one question at a time, save your answer, and then move on. But if you answer it or not, after you've moved on, you can't go back. And if you don't save it, you still can't go back, but it won't record an answer either. So always save your answer, move on to the next one. So there'll be from the chapters in the book that are on psychological disorders, which are chapters 4 through 6 and 8 through 13. We skipped chapter 7, remember? There'll be about 3 questions per chapter. One about etiology of the disorders covered in that chapter. So there'll be one question about etiology of anxiety disorders. Right? There'll be one question about etiology of, treatment of anxiety disorders, right? And probably, from the chapter on, we have some more diverse chapters. The chapter on developmental and cognitive disorders. One on the treatment of those, which could be on the, the developmental side. What's treatment for ADHD, or could be, what do you do for people that have dementia? And then one question about the symptoms or diagnosis. So, what's the essential feature of panic disorder, that kind of thing. So 3 questions per chapter, addressing those themes, and then the other chapters, 1 through 3, about history, etiology, diagnosis, and law. There'll be 3 questions per chapter, and those will be just about the main ideas of those chapters, not little detail stuff. Not for chapter 14, not which court case influenced the changing of public opinion about the insanity defense in the 70s. It won't be at that level of detail, and I'll give you some examples in a minute of questions at the level of detail I'll be looking at. But so basically three questions per chapter for all the chapters we've covered, and it'll be over stuff that's either in the book or in lecture, most likely stuff that's in both, but it could be in just one of those sources. It's all fair game. And then the 2 essay questions will be about diagnosing psychological disorders. It'll be worth 25% of the final exam grade. One of them will be asking you to demonstrate your thinking about how you distinguish between different disorders. So what's the difference between this disorder and this disorder? How do you decide if it's this one or this one? And then the other question will be about how you decide if something's a disorder or not. Is that pathological? Is it something that's diagnosable, or is it something that wouldn't meet criteria for a DSM-4 diagnosis for a diagnosis of a mental disorder, psychological disorder? Okay, some examples. So an example for the etiology type questions. Here's one that I've used before for the mood disorder chapter. According to Aaron Beck, people are at risk for experiencing depression if they, and then which of the following? Is it think negatively about themselves, the world, and their future, perceive hostile intention where there is none, don't have enough serotonin, or isolate themselves from others. And if you remember from your book and from lecture, Beck's cognitive triad is about negative thinking about yourself, the world, and the future. So it would be A, the first one. So questions like that at that level. For treatment, here's an example. To help you overcome your fear of elves, your therapist asks you to create a list of elf-related stimuli that differ in the degree to which they cause you to experience anxiety. Your therapist is most likely what type of therapist? So here you have to realize, okay, a list of things, and it sounds like you're helping me overcome my fear, and you're going to show me a bunch of elf-related stuff. I'm afraid of elves, so it sounds like exposure type therapy. And so you think, okay, and you may even remember, okay, a list of things. It's probably creating a hierarchy of phobic stimuli, so probably doing systematic desensitization. But you don't have to know that. All you have to know is, okay, it sounds like exposure stuff. It sounds very behavioral. That sounds like probably more cognitive behavioral than psychodynamic, where you're going to be talking about my childhood, or humanistic, where I'll be talking about the choices I'm making, or my place in the world kind of thing, or existential, even more so, my place in the world and the meaning of life kind of questions. So that would be C for that one. For the symptoms, some of them will be where I'll give you a little brief description, and it's kind of here's some symptoms. What's the diagnosis? So Percy presents to the ER. He gestured to the intake staff that he was unable to speak. When given a pen and paper, he communicated via writing that he had woken from a nap earlier to find that he was unable to speak. A thorough physical examination revealed no medical reason for Percy's sudden inability to communicate verbally. His most likely diagnosis is what? So you think, okay, what's going on? He can't speak, but it's not due to a general medical condition. So he has this weird neurological symptom that isn't real, so it's a pseudo-neurological symptom. Well, that's conversion disorder, right? There's no somatization disorder requires a lot of symptoms. He doesn't have a whole bunch of symptoms. Hypochondriasis requires this preoccupation with an illness. It's like, well, maybe, but he hasn't written anything about thinking that he's sick. He just has this one weird symptom. PTSD, we don't know anything about a trauma, and if there's no evidence of a trauma, pretty hard to diagnose PTSD. It leaves conversion disorder as the most likely diagnosis, because the essential feature of conversion disorder is the experience of pseudo-neurological symptoms, right? And then for the other chapters where you should have the main idea, here's an example from the first chapter. Charlie's therapist told him that his depression was due to demonic possession. This is consistent with which of the traditions we discussed: supernatural, biological, psychological, or pterodactyl. And that's a pretty easy question, and I may have some easy ones on there to lighten the load. Obviously, that's supernatural, and most obviously, it's not pterodactyl, right? That's a dinosaur. You think that's a silly answer to fail. Why? That's why you put the why I put it in there to make it a little easier. But I had a student answer that one time. But so please don't. If you see pterodactyl as an answer, if the question is not about dinosaurs, don't choose pterodactyl. Okay, for the essay questions. So the difference between disorders would be something like, I'll give you a description of somebody. Sean rarely leaves his apartment, has no close friends other than family members. So pretty vague description, right? And multiple disorders could probably account for those symptoms. And you have to identify two disorders that might account for his presentation, the little bit that you know about him. And then the important part, because you won't be graded on that, because it really could be anything. Any disorder could fit. So name some disorders. But the part that you'll be graded on is, what else would you need to know to decide which disorder was a better fit? So, what information would you need? Well, you need to know if maybe it was something about eating disorders. I need to know if they eat more food in a set period of time than most people would typically eat. I need to know if after they eat they feel like they have to do something to compensate for their eating. Right? So, what information do you need to know to say, okay, well, it's clearly bulimia or anorexia, or in this case something else. Does he have schizophrenia? Is he got social phobia? What do you need to know to tell the difference between those two disorders? And not only between those two, but for social phobia, well, I would want to find out if there's this, and this going on. If it is, it's probably this. For schizophrenia, well, I need to know, are there hallucinations or delusions or da-da-da-da-da. If there is, then it's probably that. Okay. So what do you need to know to decide which disorder is a better fit? And then the other essay, pathological versus normal. So Karen hasn't eaten more than 900 calories per day for the past 2 weeks, which is not very much. Identify 2 explanations for behavior that do not involve a psychological disorder. So it's about when given an example of a behavior that seems abnormal, trying to think of, okay, well, what else do I need to know to determine if it really is, okay, this might be consistent with anorexia, or it might also be consistent with some sort of OCD and germ phobia related to food. Don't know. What do I need to know to determine if it's that or if it's something else? Right. So what kind of questions do you need to ask? What kind of information do you need to determine if this is normal behavior, if there's some other explanation for it? Okay. Last, a few tips when taking the exam. For the multiple choice, obviously, save each answer. and you can't go back, so save each answer. Leave yourself time for the essays. I would say try to knock out those multiple choice questions in about an hour. I think that's pretty standard. Hour and a half. I wouldn't leave yourself any less time on the essays than that, because you may need to think more on the essays. The multiple choice will be more like, it's one of these 4. I know it's this one, or I can narrow it down to these 2. Pick one. And then for the essays, one tip would be compose them in Word. One, it'll keep you from misspelling as many words, which makes it easier for me to read. But it's also probably easier for you to read and compose and move things around in Word, and then just copy and paste it into the window in Blackboard where you have the space to type your essay. Just copy and paste it into there after you finished. So that both for 2 reasons. 1, easier again to write and edit. 2, Blackboard is evil and very very well may crash on you in the middle of your exam. And if it did and you were almost done with your essay, then it's all lost. But if you've done it in Word, Blackboard crashes, you still have this Word document, which hopefully you're saving every 15 minutes or so. And then you can email me right away and say, hey, Blackboard closed out on me. Here's my essay. Okay. And then the last tip for the essay: answer the question being asked. The biggest mistake I see students make on exams for essay questions is they go in kind of expecting one thing, and they learn a whole bunch about one particular thing, and they feel like comfortable and confident with that knowledge, and they want to share it. And if the question isn't about that knowledge that they have, they're going to share it anyway because that's what they know. But if you don't answer the question, if you give me really interesting information about something else, you won't get any credit, right? If I ask you about, is it this disorder or this disorder, and you tell me all about the history of mental illness, and it's a very lovely essay about the moral hygiene movement, I can't help you. You didn't answer the question. So read the question carefully. Make sure you address what's being asked. Okay. That's all for now. Good luck.